No one to talk with all by myself. No one to walk with, but I'm happy on a shelf. Ain't misbehaving, saving all my love for you, baby. I know for certain the one I love, I'm through with flirting. It's you that
Rod Stewart is a singer-songwriter, musician from London. He became a musician because his other ambition of being a footballer would have meant that he couldn't get drunk as much. He started busking with his harmonica in 1962. Now he's one of the best-selling artists of all time with 750 plus million sales worldwide. He went through a series of bands for a while in the 60s. So Jimmy Powell and the Four Dimensions, the Hoochie Coochie Men, Steam Packet, Soul Agents, Shotgun Express, the Jeff Beck Group, finally one that I've heard of, and the Faces. And he's had many stints with the Faces on and off through the years since. His first solo album came out in 1969, and in 2021 he released his 31st solo album. Jools Holland is an English pianist, singer, songwriter, TV presenter and band leader. And there aren't many people that you could really classify as a band leader these days, I don't think. He first came to public prominence in the band Squeeze in the late 70s. He briefly had a band called The Millionaires. He was co-presenter of a TV music show called The Tube, which was based in Newcastle, near where I lived, but he was fired for that for swearing on live TV. He then later did a TV show called Later with Jools Holland, which was hugely well regarded as being a place for new, excellent music to be showcased. And he does an annual Hootenanny on New Year's Eve, which is based on the Later format. He has released several, solo isn't really the right word, but several albums under his own name or combinations with bands. I reckon about 35, with the first in 1981. He formed a band called the Rhythm and Blues Orchestra, which is currently, I believe, 17 people in all. And they play big band jazz, boogie-woogie, blues, ska, and similar stuff. This, in terms of albums, started, I believe, with 1996 is Sex and Jazz and Rock and Roll, and has continued since. He's worked with a lot of people. A lot of his albums are either, he went through a phase of having basically most of them being collaborations with various well-known singers, some of them musicians, and then more recently he's done whole album collaborations with various people. He also tours in the UK most years. Hi, my name's Dan, and this is a review of a new release album. I don't often get to do this that I'm doing, which is that actually this is not just a new release, but it's a new release today, and I am recording it on release day. And I have had a chance to listen to this album twice today, despite it being a busy day and a work day, and I do not get pre-release copies of albums like some reviewers get. So, as always, when I'm doing something off my normal list, I need to tell you that the list that I'm most of the album reviews on this channel are of the 3,000 greatest albums of all time, according to a list at acclaimedmusic.com, which is an amalgamated list. But occasionally I step off, and one of those reasons that I step off is for new releases that I particularly want to have a listen to and to draw attention to, potentially. So the background for this, there's not a huge amount of information, but there is some that I managed to dig up. So Rod Stewart wanted to do a swing album. In fact, he was in the process of recording it, and he felt like he wasn't going well. So he decided to contact Jools Holland, which was a smart move. And so this album has been born. It's an album of swing songs, basically jazz classics. Quite a few of them are songs that I'm pretty familiar with. So my favourite on the album is probably Sentimental Journey, but there's also Lullaby of Broadway, Pennies from Heaven, Love is the Sweetest Thing, Them Their Eyes, Ain't Misbehaving, Frankie and Johnny, which is actually a blues classic, I would say, and The Tennessee Waltz, which is maybe a country classic. And there's five more as well that I'm less familiar with, but there's a lot of comfortable ground here. Um, it's the instrumentalists here are, I believe, and I have good reason to believe, Jools Holland's big band, sometimes called the Rhythm and Blues Orchestra. So that involves obviously Jools Holland on piano, drums, with the amazing Gilson Lavis, bass, guitar, organ, and lots of brass. It's got a huge brass section, which gives this really meaty brass sound. There's also some backing singers on this album, and the sound of the backing singers is kind of. I wish I had a term to describe them, but they remind me of the track Boogie Woogie Bugle Boy of Company B, which is this kind of tight female vocal sound, which is great. They're all pretty much upbeat treatments. Even the more gentle songs are still fairly upbeat. They do have a kind of classic Jools Holland sound to them, if you know what that means. If you don't, I'm sorry. Um, there's a tendency to kind of have a feel of umcha, which is quite fast on some tracks here, sort of umcha, 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 and then you've got swing stuff, umcha, 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 and that cha comes through a lot, and it's I think that's in some ways is no surprise because in some ways, in a small way, he's kind of blended this with a little bit of ska feel, and this is something that he does quite a lot. So musically, I love it, but I do love Jools and his band. People who've been with the channel for a while will have got the impression that I do have a thing for Jools Holland. This is true. Right, so let's move on to Rod Stewart. So he has um, very, widely acknowledged. He's got a very distinctive voice, which is husky, and is quite versatile. He's got a really good voice, actually, I would say. Now, my kind of feeling on Rod Stewart was that in the 70s, particularly the early 70s, some of the tracks that he released were amazing. And the singing was very soulful, and there was a lot of feel to it. Most people will know probably him best for Maggie May, and then after that, the "Do You Think I'm Sexy?" And actually, some of his other stuff, things like Baby Jane and "You're in My Heart, You're in My Soul," I really love. But it's kind of post "Do You Think I'm Sexy?" but into the 80s, I kind of lost interest in him because I felt he was getting more commercial and maybe it was appealing to older people than me at that point. It's incredible that he's still going. He must be 78 or 79, is around that, and obviously still got a load of energy. Um, he mostly comes at these songs in kind of a suave way. I can imagine him with a jacket held over his shoulder on a stage in Las Vegas doing this in a kind of um, yeah, a kind of Frank Sinatra-ish kind of way, but it's not quite, especially because the backing isn't really as smooth as the Sinatra kind of backing. I think there is a good fit here between him and Jools Holland. It kind of feels like a fairly happy um, arrangement between them. For me, I'd say there are other people that Jools has played with, and his band that have been a better fit. Um, but he has played with an awful lot of people, and some of them are absolutely amazing. And I think I'd say that Rod's got a soul voice here, and I think probably the voices that I like more are people like Ruby Turner, who's got a blues voice. Um, but I think that's personal preference. It is a strong album. It's a happy album. It's a happy place to be. It's a good thing to put on if you're wanting some energizing music. So it's kind of, maybe early in the evening when you got people around, but also, for driving, for washing up, for, doing the jobs around the house kind of stuff. And there are familiar songs here. Not for everybody. I don't know, obviously everybody's different and they know different stuff, but there's a lot of potential familiarity here. They've drawn on some really well-known songs. Solid arrangements. There's a nice feel. So if you're a fan of Jools, which I am, it's a yes. If you're a fan of Rod, I would imagine
this is a yes. I think it's a kind of win-win. So yeah, I enjoyed it. It's not my favourite Jools Holland album, but it's certainly way above a whole lot of other albums that I've reviewed on this channel. So I like it. And as always, I know it's just out, but if you've got any opinions or you want to share anything about how you feel about Jools Holland or Rod Stewart or this album, if you've managed to have a chance to have a listen, please do leave comments in the comment section. And that's it from me for now.
Gonna take a sentimental journey. Gonna set my heart at ease. Gonna take a sentimental journey to renew